Father God, what an amazing, wonderful God you are. You are our Savior and our substitute. And that in all this universe, as busy as you are, you will know that you are with us here this morning for our weekly appointment on this Sabbath day. Thank you so much for loving us this much. And I simply pray, amen.
Amen.
Good morning and welcome to TAF. If you sound that out, that's Triad Adventist Fellowship. That's a mouthful, so we just call ourselves TAF. And if you're visiting for the first time, either with the school or otherwise, welcome. My name is Howard Costin. I'm a member here at TAF. I've been asked to introduce and open the remarks this morning. I think probably because of my association with the school. I've had the privilege of serving on the school board for the previous 2 years, and in July I started as the school board chairman. So those of you who have not met me, or maybe know only the name and not the face, here I am. I prefer you only talk to me about the things that make you happy about the school, but I'll listen to the other stuff too, if you really need to. As part of the last 2 years, I've been involved with a number of really exciting things, and I want to say that out of Tri-City, this is amazing things are going on. We are now starting our third year in the new school building. Our enrollment projections are about 10 years ahead of place. I mean, we started the school year with about 175 students this year. We were kind of hoping we'd get there by year 10, so God is really blessing. Amazing place. If you haven't had a chance to get out to the school, and I know all the parents and kids have definitely done that, but if you're a TAF member and haven't had that chance, come talk to me. We'll figure out a way for you to come see the school. It's an amazing place. It's staffed by amazing people, from Mr. Cousins as the principal all the way down through teachers, many of which are here today. So, I want to talk a little bit about Miss Liga. I'm saying it right. So we started back in spring before this coming school year with the understanding that we had a need for a music teacher. We thought we might have to settle for employing part-time teachers from the community because we weren't staffed money-wise for a full-time teacher. But God has funny plans for us that we don't know. And as these processes evolved over that time, we found, in fact, we were in a position to search for a full-time music teacher. But we were kind of getting started late in the educational world. Sometimes starting late means all the good people have been snapped up, and it's kind of challenging. So I know there's a lot of prayers on the board. So, like God, we need somebody who can do choral and vocal stuff. That would be great. Instruments, that'd be nice. Somebody who has a passion for God, commitment to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, that's a must. But how are we going to find somebody like that? And this late a date, and God said, boy, do I have a treat for you. And we were introduced to Miss Liga. I'm looking at her resume right now that we did it. So it's interesting. She has a university degree in music theory, a master's degree in violin performance. She's an accomplished vocalist with international and national tours, and has sung on 3ABN. She's been a choral director and minister of music for churches. What an amazing person God placed at Tri-City for us. So I want to introduce her. Come on up. I know she's probably humble, but give her a hand. You know, we're not very far into the school year, you can already see the product of her early work. It's an amazing thing. Thank you very much. What's going to happen now is we're going to have some additional music. We have the elementary age choral group that's going to be doing some music for us. And the part about the passion for ministry in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, when we got Miss Liga, Along with her came her husband. She seemed to feel compelled to bring her with her when she came. He's actually a Seventh-day Adventist minister. So we know that we have a passion for God coming out of this family and for service. Thank you very much. So that's my quick introduction. I'm going to turn over the rest of the thing to the school group and to Elder Liga and to Ms. Liga.
Good morning, church. Happy Sabbath. Whatever he said is true, but it was kind of whew. So thank you. My husband. That's my husband.
Good morning.
And we have Evie Mora here. Her husband is pastor of the Cummersville Church. And this is my boy, our boy, Michael. So happy Sabbath.
I was curious a little bit, how do you feel? How is your reaction to the first music that we have with the strings? So do you like the strings group?
Yeah.
I think we are going to grow. This is just the start. So we are into the third month of the school, starting August, September, October. So we have less than 2 months. They'll grow, and they will, as a number, the quality, they already have some quality. But I was curious, how do you react? What is your feedback? I remember I was a young child in the elementary school, 7th, 8th grade, and personally I grew up into the kind of classical, I like classical music, and I was one day home and I put my radio on the only station that had the classical music, and I was jumping in the house. You can jump on classical music too, no? I was jumping there, and my neighbor, elderly lady, came to ask something. I don't remember. When she entered to the house, I opened the door. When she entered into the house, she looked around and said, anybody from the government died? Why they put the music there? So I said, no, that's the station. So I never knew about that station. So that's a kind of response. Most of the people said, oh, we need to listen for the classical music when somebody dies. So
We have happy song in here too.
right now, we'll try to do something. I know that into the churches, including Adventist churches, it's a lot of talking about the type of worship. I'm not getting there, and I don't intend to go there. However, we are already accustomed with traditional worship, contemporary worship, blended worship. Let me ask you a question. Did you ever heard about crossing worship? Are you familiar with that type of worship? Crossing worship? Huh? No? No? Let me introduce you today to that concept. Crossing worship. What that means? Involves two dimensions. Most of the traditional worship involve everybody sings, and we don't care. Actually, we don't care. We may be in a danger to lose the relationship with God because we do something. Into the contemporary worship, sometimes we don't care whatever we say. We need the relationship with God. So the vertical relationship, on the traditional, it's horizontal relationship. That forms a cross. So the reason of the worship into the public service is not only one, but both lines. And saying that, I would like to emphasize something. When I'm coming to participate into the church service, I would like to be involved. I would like to do something. And today is our purpose today to involve everybody that is here. I need to give you a motivation. Why I need to do something and not stay and receive. Because here we are giving and taking. We're here to enrich the horizontal part of the cross, but also to make sure that the vertical one is there. So the worship is focused on our purpose of being here to be redeemed by our Lord Jesus Christ. So we have 3 songs that we're going to start. As usually you have 4. The 4th one, you will say it. What is the 4th one? 3 songs involve one of the known hymns. And I'll say one more sentence. We can do contemporary worship with hymns, and we can do the traditional with contemporary. Contemporary is not necessarily about words, about melody and harmony, but it's about putting your tune in heart with God. So my invitation for you today is, we're going to follow the words. We have some songs, but I like to hear you. We are not here only to perform. The kids will do that. But here we need to interact with each other horizontally and have the crossing worship lifting up to God. First song is soon, and very soon we are going to... Sorry, let us say it. There's sunshine in my soul today. You may know that song. This is a time that not only the parents will participate. How many of you can read some words on the screen? You do? Can you do it with your voice? Good. The second one. Third one, because we are here, we don't hear too much. Let's do a cappella. Everybody sings with me. There is springtime in my soul today.
There is springtime in my soul today. For when the Lord is near, the dove of peace is in my heart. The flowers of praise are here. Oh, sunshine, blessed sunshine, while the peaceful happy moments roll. When Jesus shows His smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul.
Very good. And with the last one with the instruments, please. There is gladness in my soul today.
There is gladness in my soul today, and hope and praise and love. For blessings which He gives me now, for yours the God above. Oh, sunshine, blessed sunshine, when the peaceful happy moments roll. When Jesus shows His smiling face, there is sunshine in my soul.
Very good. I like it. I like it.
Amen.
And we can have a dialogue. The second song has to do with our Like my brother said, we are here for a purpose. We are waiting that soon and very soon to see who? The King. Soon and very soon we are going to see the King. I like that. We can be passive. Soon and very soon, soon and very soon, or soon and very soon I'm going to see the King. That's the three verses of that. Talking about no more dying there, we've been with the kids, the high school kids, last week in Florida to help for 7 days a week with recovery from the damage made by the storm. It's a very hot weather, high humidity, but by God's grace it was a good experience. However, we met a person there that helped us with was involved, came specially to Florida to participate into that. So it's a very nice person, and they left earlier than we left, only to hear that that individual had a car accident and he died. Yes. So this is an experience that we don't need to be afraid of, because we have the assurance that our Lord Jesus Christ did it for us. The last song, it's a very nice song that was introduced by Michael Smith, right? A stranger. And it's Above All. You may know that song. It's very popular among many Christians, many denominations. But you may know whatever I'm going to tell you right now, but I'm going to re-emphasize that. Above all, do you know whom this song is talking about? What is the center subject, person, or what is the central topic of this song? About whom it's speaking? About whom? God, and what part of Godhead? About Jesus, above all. About Jesus, about His sacrifice. But I don't know if you ever noticed, and you can follow the words right now that we have on the screen, that this song never explicitly contained the word God, Jesus, or Father, or Holy Spirit. Do you ever notice that? We don't have any single word saying Jesus into this song. But everything is about Jesus. Is that nice? Defining someone without using His name. And there's a purpose in that. This type of song can be very powerful in reaching others, Because sometimes we mention the word Jesus was God or God in front of someone that has no knowledge about that. It's a word, it's just out of context dialogue. But presenting a concept without using the name and bringing the person, taking the person there is something nice. I was working with prison ministry, in fact prison and jail ministry, and difference between them is prison ministry is for the long time, but jail ministry, you have some people this week and you may have it next week, but if they're out, you have a new clients the following week. So, in jail ministry, you cannot have too much continuity, not too many Bible studies. You need to present something, do to the people, and had a nice class in jail ministry, and I said, what should I do with that? Every time I'll take a guitar, we have one inside there, and started to teach them some songs. One of the songs was this song. The people who they are not introduced to Christianity, they have nothing to know. And started to, above all power, above all peace. And I don't know how much impact, but they started to sing, to participate. It was a Friday afternoon. My wife gave me a list of things to go to buy groceries, and I was looking in between the aisle there to find what is on the list. And suddenly, back to where I stayed, I heard a voice not too musical, but a bass. Crucified, left behind. I looked around. What's going on? There was a guy, young fellow, about 21, 22 years old. He was 4, something. And he looked at me and he was trying to sing with his hands up. Said, Pastor, do you know me? Do you remember this? I don't really remember you. I was there in jail when you taught this song to us. And you know what? I'm out. But every day I'm singing this song because it's about somebody I didn't know, but I learned about him. So let's sing this song that never mentioned the word of Jesus, but it is about Jesus 100%.
My husband is a pastor, but this was not the sermon today.
And as a response to that, let me give you the response. This week I talked to Brother Matt. You are Matt from here, right? And I asked him, so, do you have a frame time? So, we don't care about times in our church. So, here's.
Your fault.
watched the film Spartacus, the movie Spartacus? Some of the people. There's a very nice picture there at one time when they're looking for the real Spartacus, and they said, "Who is Spartacus?" They encircled them. They wanted to surrender to them, to have power. Who is Spartacus? And there was a bunch of people there, and the real Spartacus, he was about to jump up, to stand up from his place, and exchange his surrender by leaving his men free. But at the same time, from every corner, people started to jump up. I'm Spartacus. And you see a great army, everybody saying, "I'm Spartacus." You are here today to realize, to give allegiance to Jesus Christ, the one that it's above all power. Do you? Yes? I'd like to invite you to do something. For the second part of that, I'd like to see some Spartacus here that say, "Okay, I'd like to stand for Jesus today," just as we sing the last part. If you understand, stand, please.
Amen.
And sing.
All right, I have the privilege of introducing the choir. My wife can relax. I'm not going to sing you a solo. That would be detrimental in many ways. So I just want to say this year is off to a start, an amazing start. Like Howard shared, we started out with about 170. Do I need a new one? There we go. 175 students, which is a new record for Tri-City Christian Academy. It has been amazing to see what the Holy Spirit has done in transforming the school. I just want to praise God for that. And the other thing I want to do before we move into the choir is I would like all of the staff who are here, there's quite a few of you scattered throughout, to stand up
so that everybody can see who the staff are at Tri-City. Because the other dynamic that's happening wonderful, we have a wonderful staff. The other dynamic is our staff is growing, and that's exciting as well to see that happen. Now, I want to thank you, Triad Adventist Fellowship, because last week when we went to Florida, I don't know if you realize this or not, but you guys partnered with us, and your financial support was huge. You sponsored 2 vans to go down to Florida full of students and to minister to the people in Florida who are in trouble. One of the things that separates Adventist education from other schools is our service. And it's not just service, because public schools do service too, but it's service for Jesus. And one of the things when we were down there is we continue to share with the students is that we are the hands and feet of Jesus. And as we go out and help. And I just want to share one short story, and then we're going to turn it over to our elementary choir where all the energy is. And that is, one of the last houses we went to was a 97-year-old gentleman who was a World War II vet. Now, you know there's not a lot of those left. And as we got there with an army of youth, rightly trained, and we descended on his house, and he wanted to help us. I mean, he was walking around coherent, he's ready to get out there and help us cut wood. And I'm like, no, you probably ought to sit down here. So what we did, this was so neat. There was a porch, he had a front porch that was shaded. And I said, Arthur, his name was Arthur, I said, why don't you sit here? Would you mind telling the kids some of your stories? Because I had to go back and start doing some cutting to get things ready. And I want to tell you, he lit up. That he would have 12 or 13 young high school kids that he could tell some of his war stories to. Just, I think we made his year. And such a gracious fellow. At the end of that visit, he teared up as we were leaving. And then he teared up again because this was so neat to see this in action. You know, at the end we have prayer, and we lead the steps to Christ. But, by the way, you provided the steps to Christ. We lead the steps to Christ and we say, this is why we do what we do. But we all loaded up in the van, and 2 of our students, 2 girls, one of them was my daughter, they said, Mr. Cousins, can we go get a selfie with him? And they jumped out of the van, they got on each side, gave him a hug, and took a selfie. And again, the tears started pouring down as we were able to minister. So your support, that's one of many stories, by the way. You partnered with us in that ministry, and I want to say thank you for your help in doing that. All right, I'm going to turn it over now to our elementary choir. I want you to know that I got a sneak peek. I was able to hear them practicing in the gym, and they sound wonderful. But I'm going to let you sample it yourself. So I'm going to turn it over to the choir, and thank you, Mrs. Liga, for all the work that you've done getting it ready.
Good morning, everybody. Let me get situated here. I gotta move some of these stands out of the way. Gonna need stage hands here. So we're starting a new series. So if you're visiting, welcome. Sorry you probably won't get to hear the conclusion over the next few weeks, but hope you'll get something out of this anyway. We're going to talk about today is the series, The Ultimate Love Letter. Sometimes I think we lose sight of how important God's love is, both to us and what we're supposed to do with that love. So over the next few weeks, we're going to take a look at that. I've got a little gap in between. Next week we've got a special guest speaker here, so I'll be picking up for the last 2 weeks in October. This will be just a 3-part series. There have been so many attempts lately to sow division. You know, you think about politically, we've possibly never been more divided. Got people on the right, the left, conservative, liberal. People got their own news sources, all sorts of things that seek to just tear us apart. So much of what we're seeing now is a battle between good and evil. Got Satan saying, as he always has, that, well, the Lord's not really trustworthy. He says these things, but he's withholding. He's not giving you everything. Then we've got God demonstrating his love even despite all the things that are going on. So today we're going to begin by asking, what is love? Because it's important that that's where we put the foundation. There's so many different types of love. And it's easy to hear it and still not really register what it is. There's a short story by Tennessee Williams. It talks about a young man, Jacob Brodsky. Jacob's father owned a small bookshop. Jacob was a smart man, but he was shy, not really outgoing, enjoyed his bookish life. Well, Jacob's father wanted nothing more than to see his son succeed, so he wanted him to go to college. But Jacob, as a lot of young people do, had another thing that he wanted more than anything. And that was to marry his sweetheart, Lila. Lila was a French girl who was outgoing, vivacious, adventurous, and ambitious. So they were almost polar opposites here. But Jacob decides to follow his father's advice, do what his father tells him. He goes off to school. And then a few weeks later, he gets word that his father's passed away unexpectedly. So he comes back, buries his father, and marries his sweetheart. They move into the apartment above this bookstore. And while Jacob settles in and is enjoying this, time with his books, and the occasional customer that will come in, time with his sweetheart, Lila's chafing a bit. She wants more adventure. She wants to be out there. Go on adventurous trips, make a name for herself. And she gets this opportunity because an agent comes to their town, listens to her beautiful singing voice and says, "Oh, you've got to come to Europe. You can tour with a vaudeville company, tour with this touring company, come on." And after thinking it over, she decides that that's what she's going to do. Jacob, as you can imagine, is crushed. He's had the loss of his father, and now his wife is going to go away. But as they're saying their parting words, he hands her a key. Key to the shop. And he says, "You're going to want to hang on to this because your love is not so much less than mine that you're not going to want to come back someday. And I'll be waiting." Lila takes the key, they have one final kiss, and she goes off. And then Jacob experiences the pain, the grief, the anguish of being without her. So he retreats to what makes him comfortable, and that's a little desk at the back of this shop filled with books. Just read, occasionally a customer will come in and he'll assist them, but that's it. This goes on that way for 15 years almost. And then one Christmas, Lila walks through the door. Jacob comes up to the front, but he doesn't recognize her. He says, "Can I help you find something?" Lila's taken aback, but she figures, well, it has been several years, so let me try to remind him of who I am. So she says, well, I am looking for a book, but I don't remember the name of it. And so she tells him the story of two childhood sweethearts, one more reserved and quiet. They move into an apartment above this bookstore, but the woman is ambitious and goes off to pursue a career, but despite great success, she can never get rid of this key that's been given to her. But Jacob still has this quizzical look, lack of recognition. So Lila tries again. More urgently this time, she says, "Surely you must know the story of Lila and Jacob?" And suddenly, across Jacob's face begins to be something there. And he says, yeah, I think I remember that. By Tolstoy. She drops the key, runs out, and he returns to his desk, unaware that the love that he had been waiting for so long had come right to him and he had missed it. And I think that's often something that we have a problem with, especially if you've grown up as a Christian. It's so easy to hear things like God is love, to think about Christ's sacrifice on the cross, but for it to not really register, for it to just be something that you say, and sure, you understand it on a certain level, but you're ignorant of several parts of it all the same. It doesn't have the same power it might once have had. But before we talk about that genuine love, God's love, let's talk about some different types of love. This cheeseburger will become evident in a second. So we have the love that might have for a spouse, girlfriend or boyfriend. Have the love that you have for your family. And those are close loves. In fact, oftentimes we equate those, compare those to God's love for us. The church is referred to as the bride of Christ. God dotes on lovingly, calls back to him at various times. And then there's the example of God being our Father. But unfortunately, even these examples have become slightly more imperfect. Satan knows that those would be good analogies, so he's worked hard to make those not work very well for us. I'll never forget that several years ago I was teaching a Sabbath school class, and I believe the topic that week was God being our loving Heavenly Father. And I had one lady that just finally blows out. Hearing that doesn't do anything for me. It makes me scared. So we probed as to why. And we got a tale of an abusive, alcoholic father that she grew up with. And so every time she heard Father, that's what she thought. So then we're going to step down, because we say we love a lot of things. So we have lesser loves. Maybe you've got a love for a particular sports team, despite the fact that all they do is lose. I'm sorry, Browns fans. And then we've got maybe love for inanimate objects. Like this cheeseburger up here. And if you're vegan, you can just picture it being a non-cardboard black bean burger with vegan cheese. But, we say we love these things, but certainly it's not all the same types of love. There's one big love leave out. One that too often rivals our love for God, and that would be our love for ourselves. It's a love that blinds us, that puts in basically a boulder in the path of us into God. Causes us to do all sorts of just awful, nasty things. In the name of protecting this love, this pride, these sorts of things. Say hurtful things, dismiss people. All because our love for ourselves is the biggest thing. But what about this love of God? Now, we can talk quite a bit about it, but I think that it's best to focus, at least today, on it being embodied by Jesus. Emmanuel, God with us. It's a little bit more tangible for us, I think. We have somebody who was fully man and fully God, experienced the same temptations, and yet still had this true godly love. So let's look at a few examples. So first of all, Jesus' love is sacrificial. This is probably where our minds go when we think of it. We've got the cross there. Think of Jesus dying for us while we were still enemies, while I was still against him. He died for me. Think about all he endured during his ministry, his time on earth. But also think about the sacrifice in the garden. Right before, hours away from this grisly, gruesome death. And he's there with a few of his closest friends, some of the disciples. He's asked them to just stay awake and pray with them, but unfortunately, they're all a little bit away and they're sleeping. But he's still praying. But his prayer for himself is so minimal. His prayer for his disciples, and even for us, is what the bulk of his prayer is. Even then, he was thinking of others. And it's easy for us to talk about sacrificial love. But we need to remember that sacrifice involves giving up something significant. Because we're going to play a fun little game here. Suppose I had $1 million, which I unfortunately do not, and I gave somebody $10. Now, would that be a sacrifice? No, right? I mean, it could be still a generous gift. It's good. There's no sacrifice, right? Now, if I had $100 and I gave 10, would that be a sacrifice? Yeah. If I had $20 and gave 10, and if I had $10 and gave 10, certainly. I think about the slogan for the Building for Eternity campaign, and I still come back to that. I love that not equal giving, but equal sacrifice. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind. The levels that Jesus went to when it wasn't convenient, wasn't easy. It's that sacrificial love. Something we can all do. So as we go through these different points, I want us to mind two things. First of all, how God's love and God's demonstration of this affects us and how we're to respond to him. But this love, once it takes hold of us, isn't something we're meant to hold on to. We keep in a box somewhere. It's just something we're supposed to share to those around us. Jesus says, by this all men will know that you're my disciples, that you have love for one another. Now let's talk about another aspect. Jesus persisted. Got the image here of him knocking, waiting to come in. And this is one area, I don't know about you, but I fall short sometimes. In fact, probably not sometimes, probably often would be a better term there. But the persistent love of loving even when been rejected. Loving when it's difficult. Loving when the person I'm supposed to be loving maybe isn't the easiest to love for me. Continuing to pursue. In fact, God's love is so persistent that one British poet compared it to the hound of heaven. And he talked about how this God chased him down with this love until finally it overtook him. And it's a good thing the Lord's persistent, isn't it? Because I don't know about you, but I've had times in my life where that's been needed. In fact, sometimes it's annoyingly persistent. So for a time in my life, I was attending another church sporadically, another denomination. I was been out of the Adventist church for a few years, and I had no intentions of going back. So I'm in my apartment, hear a knock on the door. So I go down and answer it, and there's somebody selling books. And I'm looking through and seeing what these books are, and decide, oh, I've got a few dollars on me. All right, I'll buy a couple books, help the person out. And then I'm walking back upstairs to my bedroom with these books, just leafing through. Look on the inside cover, and I see Ellen G. White. And because we're in church, I can't repeat what I said, but, you know, it was that sort of persistence that really gets you. So let's look at an example of this persistence here from the Bible. John 21, we're going to go to verse 15. I'll put it up on the screen, but let me give some background. And if you want to turn there with me, that's fine, or else I certainly will have it up here on the screen. But give some background. So Jesus here is talking to Peter. It says after he's risen, sitting there in the early morning hours on the beach. We remember Peter, right? Peter was prideful, confident. Now he said, Lord, all these others may desert you, but not me. No, I'll be right there. And then what happened, right? Peter denies him. Denies him 3 times. And it's important we understand that it's not just a denial like, no, I don't know him. Although maybe that was the first one. But commentators tell us that the way this would have sounded by certainly the 3rd denial was a vehement denial. I don't know him. And there was probably some cursing thrown in there for good measure. So this is a massive denial. So there's still kind of that tenseness. Peter's still a little unsure of his relationship with Jesus. So they're sitting down. We'll go ahead and pick up here. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my lambs. Second time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said to him, tend my sheep. Said to him the 3rd time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter felt hurt because he said to him the 3rd time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. I think it's interesting here that Jesus said 3 times, asked 3 times, and of course the denial happened 3 times. It's just persistence that Jesus is letting Peter know that he still loves him. And that he's still got a work for Peter to do. So we need to show the same persistence in our relationships with others. Now, we don't have infinite time and resources like our Lord does. But too often we give up far too easily. Somebody's cross with us, that's it. I'm done. I tried. That's it. I'm done. But that's not what the Lord calls us to do. In fact, that leads me to our next aspect of God's love. Vulnerability, open to pain and rejection. This is something we don't like to think about, but you think about how much Jesus was rejected. How many times? I mean, you had the disciples that ultimately fled for a time. People that were with him for 3 years. Had his own family that rejected him during this time. And then you had the people that absolutely should have seen his coming a mile away. When he came, they should have known that's the Messiah. And those are the Pharisees. Now, I don't want to say the Pharisees get a bad rap, because Jesus, after all, did say they do the works of their father, the devil. But Too often we look at the Pharisees and we say, oh, they're bad guys. They're over here. But there are a lot of times that we act just like them. See, the Pharisees started out with some good intentions. Children of Israel come back from captivity, and they said, well, we know why we went to captivity. We didn't keep God's law. And we never want to go back there again. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up some additional rules, kind of a hedge of rules. In fact, we're going to construct multiple hedges. And in that sense, there will be the actual God-given rules, and this other stuff will be around here to protect it. So if somebody breaks it, they're not going to break through those multiple hedges and actually do something that'll get us sent back to captivity. But as we know from the New Testament, these rules, regulations became burdensome. Became something that was measuring their salvation. The Pharisees became what we call expert legalists. Now, I know nobody has any experience in legalism here, so let me just explain to you what that is here. Legalism is when you set up extra rules and you believe that you're going to get to heaven by keeping these rules. That's it. They make you feel better. They make you feel superior sometimes. There are a variety of reasons that people will turn to that. But it's a pernicious, awful thing. Because you're not showing any of God's love. In fact, you're showing pride because you feel, hey, if I do this, I'm going to get to heaven. When the Bible clearly says, that's not the way that works. So there's this vulnerability. Jesus putting himself out there despite rejection. And you think he does that for us even. Even when we reject him, he comes back, drawing us to him. In fact, if you read the Old Testament, especially the prophets, you'll see the Lord talking to the church, saying, I know you've gone down past this, but let's just forget about that. Come back to me. I'm going to build up your vineyards. I'm going to give you all this wonderful stuff. Just want you with me. During World War II, Hitler commanded all religious groups to unite so that he could control them. Among the Brethren assemblies, half complied and half refused. Those who went along with the order had a much easier time. Those who did not faced harsh persecution. In fact, almost every family of those who resisted had someone die in a concentration camp. When the war was over, feelings of bitterness ran deep between the groups, and there was much tension. Finally, they decided that the situation had to be healed. Leaders from each group met at a quiet retreat. For several days, each person spent time in prayer, examining his own heart in light of Christ's commands. And then they came together. Francis Schaeffer, who told the incident, asked a friend who was there, "What did you do then?" "We were just one," he replied. As they confessed their hostility and bitterness to God and yielded to his control, the Holy Spirit created a spirit of unity among them. Love filled their hearts and dissolved their hatred. When love prevails among believers, especially in times of strong disagreement, it presents to the world an indisputable mark of a true follower of Christ. Again, it's so easy for us to get division here. And that's exactly what Satan wants, especially in the church, because he's neutralized a very effective group working against him. So often we want to hang on to these feelings of bitterness, jealousy, and pride. Instead of just confessing them before the Lord and saying, Lord, you take that. I know what you want me to do, and I'm going to do it. We can't just come together and have a conversation. Instead, we talk to people that we think are going to support us, build up. Talk to everybody, the people we need to do, which are the people that we may have a problem with. This just builds up. Because we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to be open to pain and rejection. We don't want to acknowledge the fact that maybe we were wrong too. what God's love is. Several years ago, during college, I was reading about early Christianity, and I came across quite a bit on the early desert fathers. And these were people early in the church who went out into the desert and lived their lives there. So some would live in caves. One, curiously enough, lived on a column for several years out in the desert. I'm not quite sure how that worked, and I'd rather not know details, but that's where they were. They were segregated. People would occasionally come to them, but they lived mostly as hermits, communed with God. But as good as that might have been for them, that's not what God calls us to. God calls us to community, to relationship. In fact, that's the essence of the church, is forming these relationships. Our relationship with God is because He reached out to us first. He extended that olive branch to us. And you look at what Jesus spent His time doing here on earth, building relationships. And that's tough for us because, let's be honest, sometimes people are difficult. I mean, I know I can be difficult, and I know other people, depending on personalities and things, can kind of rub me the wrong way. It's tough, and with those relationships, some of your sharp edges are erased. That doesn't feel very good. You're reminded of your faults, reminded of how complex relationship can be, but it's needed because when we have these relationships, we can better understand people, and we can better give people the benefit of the doubt that we always give to ourselves. Right? So, for example, if I'm running late for church, it's easy for me to justify it in my mind. The kids couldn't get ready in time. I didn't get any sleep last night, so I was trying to catch those first extra minutes. But then, when Bob comes through the door late, Bob, does he have no respect? He's supposed to be here 15 minutes ago. I apologize to any Bobs. I don't have any specific Bobs in mind, by the way. But with that relationship, we get to know each other, and we can understand each other better. So, for example, Matt, who I have a relationship with and gotten to know, I can overlook the fact that he cheers for the wrong hockey team because we still have a loving relationship there. And certainly we can then better deal with each other in more difficult circumstances. Let's circle back to our relationship with God. C.S. Lewis writes, on the whole, God's love for us is a much safer subject to think about than our love for Him. It's easy to talk about His love sometimes, right? It's unfailing. It's persistent. It's always there no matter what. God knows everything about us, and yet still He loves us equally. His love is not changing. Then when I think about my love for God, let's just say it's a little bit more fickle and inconsistent. There are periods of time where I very much feel close to Him, and then within hours can fade away. And I don't always value that relationship as I should, so I'll do things like, I got busy morning, I'm just going to have to skip some quiet time. And quiet time for me is a little bit of a struggle. I don't know if it's my ADD or what, but every time I sit down for quiet time, if you've ever seen the slot machines that just spin like that, that's what my mind starts doing. All these things, and I'm trying to focus, and it can be a challenge. But, like anybody you care about, you're going to spend time with that person. I mean, imagine if you're dating somebody and you never spend any time with them. And then sometimes that relationship gets really out of whack, and so I'll start to do things on the Sabbath, the time set aside for time with God. I'll do other things that maybe please me a little bit more, and something that I want to do. And so I'm taking time away from God. And the problem is that sets me up for problems down the road, because if my relationship with God is out of whack, there's nothing else that's going to be steady in my life. It may take a bit for me to get there. It's not going to be necessarily an immediate thing, but there's going to be problems if that relationship starts to stumble and struggle. Promise I'm wrapping up so we can get food. Let's go ahead and go to our last point here. Reckless. Now, as far as I know, Jesus never cliff dived. But the love of God can be described as reckless in a lot of ways. It breaks some rules, really, when you think about it. Rules that we've set up, sure, but rules nonetheless. Let's look at a really well-known example here. This is the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. Now, this is an interesting story because since we're going to kind of pick it up in the middle, I'll just quickly recap what's happened. Jesus and the disciples are all in ministry. They're walking through Samaria, which, first of all, most Jews are going to avoid because Samaria is bad. You're not even supposed to touch anything the Samaritans touched, or now you're unclean. You've got problems. So these are people you avoid. If you have to go through there, you're going to get through there as quickly as possible, not making contact with anybody, and get on with your day. But they come to a town. It's the heat of the day. It's hot. They're worn out. So Jesus sends his disciples into the town to find some food. And a woman comes to the well to draw some water. Now, if you're thinking, the day to get water, that seems kind of strange, you would be correct. Normally you would go in the early morning when it's cool. But she clearly really wasn't looking for any sort of relationship, because she would go in the middle of the day when nobody else would be there, when she could just slip in and slip out. But Jesus strikes up a conversation with her, which is really reckless according to the traditions of his time in two ways. First of all, it's a woman. I mean, if that ever gets back to his church board that he didn't have any supervision, that's going to be a problem. And then second, it's a Samaritan. Pick it up here, verse 16, chapter 4. Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come back." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You're right in saying I have no husband. For you have 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." Jesus is revealing a little bit of knowledge he has about this woman. And he's affirming the fact that told him the truth, despite how difficult that may have been. The woman said to him, "Sir, I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you say that the place where people most worship is in Jerusalem." Really ready to change the subject here. Jesus said to the woman, "Believe me, the hour is coming when you will worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem." And what happens after that is interesting. So she goes and tells the townspeople, "You've got to come meet this guy. He's a man who told me everything I've ever done." And the townspeople come, and then they report to her, "We now believe because we've seen, because we've been with him. We've heard develop that relationship." And many in that town were converted. All because Jesus was a little reckless, spending some time in Samaria. About the recklessness of our first ancestors, Adam and Eve. Created, sin. I don't know about you, but I've often thought, that would be the opportunity for a do-over, right? God just to say, well, that didn't work out. All right, let's just wipe the slate clean. But that's not what he did. He found them. He created clothes for them. And he provided for them so that they could have redemption. Too often we want to play it safe in our relationships and maybe try to protect our hearts a bit. Put some walls around them. Minimize our interactions with other people, especially those that we find difficult. But praise the Lord, that's not what God does. And so this love of God is love. It's his defining characteristic. It's not something we hang on to. It's something that we're meant to share. Jesus said, "By this, all people will know that you're my disciples. That you have love for one another." Would you pray with me? Dear Lord, we're in awe of your love. And may we have the same patience, persistence, and heart for your people, which is everybody, that you have for us. Amen.
Don't worry, I'm not going to do another sermon. So, at this point, I know we have a lot of visitors, so I'm going to explain what I'm about to ask you to do. I want you to take your phones out, and I want you to open up Facebook, and I want you to check in here at Triad Adventist Fellowship. And the reason why we do that every week, and for every person who checks in, we as a church will make a donation to a community service project. Last month, we went to Adventist Community Services to help out with disaster relief in Florida. This month, for every check-in, we will make a donation to Adder, Puerto Rico, to help out with that situation. So it's okay, you can pull your phones out, get on Facebook, it's okay. You won't get in trouble for doing that, you're actually doing good doing that. So check in on Facebook, say that you're here, say that you're checking in, because with every check-in, we'll give money to Puerto Rico. Next Sabbath, and most of you know that are members here, that Roger Hernandez will be here in March doing the evangelistic series. Starting next Sabbath, the second Sabbath of every month, up until March, we're going to have a guest speaker. And in the afternoon, after lunch, we're going to have a training session. And so if you are a member here, come next week, because actually a good friend of mine, Timon Hines, will be our speaker. But stay for the training, because when Roger comes and we have an influx of people, we need not just the leadership team, not just the board, not just the elders, we're going to need everyone's help to get that done. You know, he's bringing with him groups like Selah, Johnny Diaz, Larnell Harris, Veritas. All of those will be here with Roger Hernandez. So we're really looking forward to that. So make sure you come out next week to hear my friend Timon, but also stay for the training in the afternoon. During the next song, we're going to collect an offering, and I'm also going to say a word of prayer for the spaghetti that smells really good out there. If you're anywhere near that door, you can smell it out the back door. But make sure you stay, fellowship, get to know somebody, sit at a table you don't know somebody with, and have some good fellowship over there. And that works. Howard is telling me not to pray. Howard, that's not nice. You shouldn't tell somebody not to pray.
I talked to Chris about this, but I didn't talk to you. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm still short when I'm standing on the same level with him. I want to just take a second, going back into my role as the school board chairman. Peter talked about Tri-City's role for service. And every year, just about every year, and I think it's been pretty consistent, they do an international mission trip to serve as the hands of God. And so Adonijah, right? Come on up. We have some of our kids from Tri-City here today are part of this group raising money to go on this mission trip. So this is Adonijah. He's one of our mission trip. Who in the strings is in the mission trip? Just about everybody. So Adonijah, we're going to give him a basket as you leave today. He'll be standing right outside the doors there. If you are not currently supporting or have received a donation request from a Tri-City student, or even if you have, but you would like to support these young people in their quest to be the hands of God as they go international this year, they each have to raise $1,300. We're going to give you the opportunity to just drop a donation into Adonijah's basket to support their efforts. That's what I meant. That's it. So, you guys face in your minds, right? You recognize when you leave. Thank you.
All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for your message today. I want to thank you for the music that we've heard, the blessing that we have received from these young people, Lord. Lord, I want to ask your blessing upon TCA, upon the faculty and staff, but most importantly upon the students. Lift them up, bless them, help them each day to grow closer to you, Lord. Lord, I want to ask that you bless the food that we're about to partake of and the fellowship that will go along with it. And as we collect an offering, Lord, help that offering to further the work that we do here in the community and around the world. Help us to be your hands and feet. Help us so that when people see us, they don't just see us and what we do, but they see you. In Jesus' name, amen.
I want to take a little moment to thank all the students and all the parents and all the families that came here today, because even if I am teaching them at school, if you are not here, and all the teachers, thank you for your help. I cannot do this by myself, so I appreciate all of you, and I want to thank the high schoolers. They are here to sing, to play with us, and we are doing great things together there. They are all special to me, and I am really pleased to be there to help. We are having the last song.
During the offering, we can do this song, which is a public song. And if you choose to hate me, but I think